This is St Paul's Cathedral. Designed by Christopher Wren and built between 1675 and 1711.
St Paul's stands on a site that has already seen 4 earlier cathedrals. All of them fell to fire, war, or disaster.
A great medieval cathedral once stood here, but effigies like this one are all that remained. So, what happened?
The medieval cathedral began construction in 1087, but in the latter part of its existence, it had suffered many years of neglect. Possibly struck by lightning in 1561, its spire had collapsed, leaving the cathedral badly damaged. In fact, the cathedral was in a state of decay for much of the 16th and 17th centuries. In that time, there was huge political and religious upheaval, the Reformation and later the English Civil War. At one point, it was even used as a cavalry barracks, where hundreds of horses were stabled.
After the Civil War, the monarchy was abolished and the king at the time, Charles I, was executed. Oliver Cromwell ruled as Lord Protector. This period had a huge impact on the Church of England.
As the medieval cathedral decayed, life around St Paul's carried on, and the churchyard buzzed with printers and booksellers.
In 1660, Charles II returned to the throne, 11 years after the execution of his father, King Charles I.
The monarchy was reinstalled, and Charles II set plans in motion to repair and restore Old St Paul's. Christopher Wren was the architect who planned the cathedral's rework, the long-lost spire to be replaced with a new dome.
By the summer of 1666, scaffolding surrounded the Great Cathedral as work began.
But on the 2nd of September, the Great Fire of London broke out. The City of London and Old St Paul's were under threat. Charles II, frustrated by the Lord Mayor's slow response, ordered houses to be pulled down to create fire breaks and to help direct efforts to halt the spread.
On the 4th of September, the fire reached St Paul's Cathedral. Local booksellers assumed their books would be safe in the stone cathedral, so they stored them in the crypt down below. However, the wooden scaffolding and the books fueled the flames.
Diarist John Evelyn wrote in his diary, "The stones of St Paul's flew like grenades." Within hours, the lead roof melted and collapsed. When the fire finally burned out, 80% of the city lay in ruins. Charles II quickly set out new rules for rebuilding. Streets were to be widened and houses to be made from brick or stone instead of wood.
The king was determined that St Paul's Cathedral would rise again. At first, he hoped it'd be built on its old foundations, but the ruins were too unstable.
Charles II turned again to Christopher Wren, and he came up with this. Wren developed bold new designs, including finishing the Great Model in 1673. A vast wooden plan for the cathedral that visualised how he believed it should be built. The king approved of Wren's proposal and ordered the rebuilding of the cathedral according to the design and model.
But not everyone shared his enthusiasm.
Members of the cathedral chapter had doubts. It was considered too unfamiliar, and worse still, couldn't be built in stages. It had to be built all at once, making it impractical. The Great Model design had to be abandoned. Wren went back to the drawing board.
His next version, this design, was finally approved by the king, government and cathedral chapter and received a royal warrant.
The warrant design, authorised by Charles II, looks very different from the cathedral we see today.
Wren included a clause that allowed him to make ornamental rather than essential changes. In May 1675, rebuilding began.
From those ornamental changes, Wren quietly redrew the cathedral as it rose, turning the approved plan into something far closer to his Great Model vision. Charles II never saw the new cathedral complete, as he died in 1685. Wren, however, did see it complete, living to the age of 91. Upon his death, he was buried in the crypt, where his own epitaph invites the visitor, "If you seek his monument, look around you." Together, the King's vision and Wren's genius gave London one of its defining landmarks.